talking about sustainability and careers this evening. I will be directing a set of questions to our panelists. We'll start by hearing a bit from each of our panelists this evening. They'll be giving a short introduction. So I'll be sort of going down the list, and we'll be hearing from each one of our speakers. Panelists, if I think I'll call on you in order here, and if you want to share your name, your pronouns, if you're comfortable sharing, your job title, company, the sector you work in, and kind of the first question that we'll be starting off with this evening is what sustainability means to you in your line of work. So again, thank you all for joining the SDG Career Chats with Alumni tonight, and just also worth noting, this is the final workshop in a series of 5 workshops on sustainability that were offered through a partnership with the Center for Career Action and the Impact Alliance. So I'm excited to be sharing this space with you as we kick off the final workshop today. Okay, so maybe we can get started on panelist introductions. So I believe we'll be calling on Laura first. So again, Laura, if you want to give us an introduction, name, pronouns if you're comfortable, job title, company sector, and what sustainability means to you in your line of work.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm off mute here. So yes, so my name is Laura Galbraith. I'm the Director of Community Impact at Vidyard. I use pronouns she and her, and in my role, we are a tech SaaS company located in downtown Kitchener. Over the last couple of years, we've gone very much to the digital first model, which has really helped reduce our carbon footprint in our office and using large amounts of space, and kind of move to this collaborative work area. And in my role, I focus a lot on our community in very tangible ways. 2 main pillars focusing around equity within education and essential supports around food, health, shelter and health. And recently we've introduced some climate pieces as well, and looking to kind of expand on that and what we can do from a sustainability lens. Ultimately, sustainability to me is really finding out ways that we can live, work, and exist in ways that we are truly being mindful of the impact that we are creating, ways that we see and don't see, both in short and long term, and really ultimately leaving things better than the way that we found them. I'm work in tech, so we're all about innovative solutions and finding ways that we can do and work better and more effectively. And so, yeah, in my role, again, Graham mentioned at the beginning about, really sustainability through that lens of, not leaving anyone behind. And truly, we believe that through having our pillars within our community program align to sustainable development goals, and really ensuring that we're looking through things through the lens of equity, and then preserving our land and our space that we operate in. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to be here tonight.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'll pass it on to Danya next for an introduction and what sustainability means to you.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, guys. So yeah, I'm Danya. I'm a co-founder of Implitica. We are a early stage biotech company that builds software and services to optimize the industrial bioprocess space. So industrial bioprocesses are essentially systems that are carried out by mixtures of microorganisms and fungi. And just to give you a couple of examples of these types of systems, there are very applicable in the environmental remediation space, where you can find naturally occurring soil microbes that can break down or transform industrial contaminants such as petroleum hydrocarbons and make them into less toxic forms. There are renewable natural gas applications where you have bugs that metabolize organic waste and produce a renewable form of natural gas through biogas. And I heard a dog bark right there. So yeah, part of what we do involves collecting DNA-based data sets that capture microbial community profiles. And we really focus on not just identifying organisms that are present in these systems, but really to elucidate what their functional capabilities are so that we could help our clients harness these bacteria and help them adopt nature-based solutions that are essentially more environmentally friendly. So, and I think I'll echo what Laura said about sustainability, where it's not just about synergistic living with our planet, but building in Politica, I've realized we can really harness the biodiversity that surrounds us to live modern lives. And I think we're going through this transition right now where we're going from conventional, sort of traditional old school techniques into more green techniques. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, Mari, as the panelists are giving their introductions, I want to hear so much more already. So I'm excited for what's to come. Cam, if you wish to go next for an introduction and what sustainability means to you.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I'm actually joining the call from what is or where is arguably the epicenter of climate change in North America. I live in Utah at the northern edge of the Mojave Desert, an hour north of Lake Mead. It's been in the news a lot, largest water reservoir in the US, which is very quickly drying up, and an hour south of Lake Powell, second largest water reservoir in the US, also critically low, 25% capacity. So in an area where we are running out of water, intense heat, it's been for weeks now, over 40 degrees Celsius. Last time it rained here was about 3 months ago. It's a geologically beautiful area. This is why we live here, but it is climate change real time. I'm a double E grad from 1991 and got into sustainability field. I more recently ran a couple of the largest solar companies in the US as a president CEO in terms of clean energy, reducing emissions. And I also just recently co-founded an energy storage company. So a little bit of a background about me, sort of how I'm involved. Climate change is something very, very personal for me because I see it, I live it. Prior to the pandemic, for work reasons, I was traveling about 300,000 kilometers a year all over the world. And this truly is a global challenge. This is arguably, in my opinion, the most significant challenge humanity has ever faced in terms of long-term health and survival of humanity and all the other species we share this planet with. So it's a very emotional and a personal thing for me. And sustainability really no different than some of the comments already made. For me, it's all about minimizing our carbon footprint. It's all about achieving an appropriate equilibrium where we are not destroying and ravaging the planet for short-term gain and short-term growth, and avoiding what is becoming a dire situation. Sorry, being an engineer, I was timing myself to make sure I stay on time, and I didn't realize it would beep. So it reminded me I have used my 3 minutes. But anyhow, that's sustainability for me is about harmony, living with nature, not against nature, and ultimately really taking all the necessary steps to avoid what in all likelihood could be a catastrophic future, not necessarily for our generation, but certainly one generation down the road.
Thanks so much for sharing, Cam. It's a powerful message, and we're certainly getting to a point where we can't ignore the signs anymore, and they're getting more and more in our face about the impact of climate change. And it sounds like those signals are all the more present where you're calling in from. So thank you for sharing. Shirley, I'll have you next to provide an introduction and what sustainability means to you.
Certainly. So as the slide shows, I'm Shirley Speakman. I use pronouns she and her. I am a senior partner at Cycle Capital. Cycle Capital is one of Canada's most active and prolific Canadian venture capital funds that specializes in clean technology. So I'm very heartened to actually be sitting and around this screen with people who fundamentally believe exactly what we invest in. And for us, we look at opportunities that make the world more efficient, more effective, more productive, that have a positive impact on the environment. And as a venture fund, all those investments must make a return for our investors. At the end of the day, a number of reports have demonstrated that solving this problem is actually $1 trillion investment opportunity. And we believe that being at the forefront within the Canadian community, we have a very special role to play. There's enormous technology available within Canada. We are an exporting nation. We just need to export more of Canada, our brilliance and our technology. So I'm very happy to be part of this panel and look forward to hearing more from everyone else.
Thank you, Shirley, and looking forward to hearing more from you about leveraging some of that brilliance and technology that we have here towards the SDGs. And finally, we have Roland on the docket. Roland, if you don't mind sharing an intro on what sustainability means to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this panel. As the slide says, my name's Roland Singh. I am a math alum, computer science major. So yes, I have a math degree. This was before they gave out computer science degrees, class of 1985. And I am one of the co-founders and a staff engineer at Skywatch, which is based in Kitchener. And Skywatch is a company that makes Earth observation data collected by satellites easy to find, easy to use, and affordable. You need data to measure the progress that we are making towards sustainability, and that's what Skywatch provides to our customers. Amongst the use cases our customers are creating with our data, many of them, like crop health, deforestation, disaster relief, and infrastructure monitoring, relate to many of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. And what we do as a company is make it easy and affordable for these customers to take our data and to create insights that we can action on to help us achieve our collective sustainability goals. Yeah, and that's it.
Thanks, Roland. Yeah, it speaks to that the importance of data and supporting all of these efforts for sure. And thank you everyone for your introductions. I know that like I said personally, I'm so excited to hear more from all of you, and I hope the audience feels the same. I'm sure they do. And so we can kind of jump right into our first question to sort of dig a bit deeper here. So the kind of first question on the docket here is what drew you to your current role? How important was it to find a job that aligned with your values? And again, so this time we'll reverse the list, and we'll start with you, Roland.
All right. So being a CS grad, I've been a software developer for my entire 37-year career, and I'd always dreamt of starting my own company. It took almost 30 years. We started Skywatch in 2014. But at the time, the combination of opportunity, circumstance, and technology was able to make that dream come true for me. I mean, I've only got a couple of minutes here, so I don't want to get into our founding story. However, when the movie version comes out, I guarantee it'll be a blockbuster, just saying. But anyway, being a co-founder also gave me some influence in the values that our company holds in high regard, like respect, humility, diversity, trust, accountability, and empowerment. And this is reflected in how we conduct business and how we value our employees. And valuing our employees is really, really important to me because I've had a really long career, and I've worked in many companies where value of valuing employees necessarily wasn't part of the company culture. And I've experienced firsthand what that will do to you as a person. And I don't want any of our employees to go through that. So treating people with respect, just like treating our environment with respect, is very near and dear to me. When we formed the company and as we built the company, these were things that I wanted to make sure were reflected in what we do. Yeah,
so well said, Roland. I will eagerly await that movie. I will happily watch that whenever it's released. Shirley, if you want to go next, and what drew you to your current role? How important was it to find a job that aligned with your values?
Absolutely. So I'm going to answer the second question first. I'm going to say that it's probably one of the most important things is to find a job or a career or a calling that actually does align with those values. Because life is way too short to do anything but that. And, you know, it might take you some time to find those opportunities, to find the right place for you. But what I've always found is that I've found my place at Cycle. What I believe, what I value is actually reflected in the work that we do at Cycle and in the impact that we're having. In answer to the first, I would love to say that there was a direct line from Waterloo to where I'm sitting, but there wasn't. It really was continuing to try to find that place that I felt at home at. It also was part of a journey for me. And the most important part for me was saying yes to interesting opportunities that intrigued me and that wouldn't end me up in jail. That was the other criteria. So at Cycle, what I find is I have found that place where what's important to me, which is trying to find a way to solve our climate problems, whether that's through adaptation or mitigation. I found a place where I can actually use capital to invest in entrepreneurs that have solutions to this problem. I might not come up with those ideas, those game-changing ideas, but I can invest in the entrepreneurs that do, and that gives me incredible joy. And as a result, I don't see what I do as a job. I see it as a lifestyle choice.
Fantastic, Shirley. Thank you. It's like lots of great careering wisdom in there too about, you know, open opportunities and non-linear career paths. All great stuff. Thank you for sharing. Cam, if you want to take a crack at this question next, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure, thank you. I can certainly resonate with all the comments made, especially with Shirley's. You know, I feel fortunate that I went to University of Waterloo, great school, got fantastic world-class education. You know, when I finished in 1991, I had 6 job offers. And I decided to join General Motors. I was like a kid in a candy shop. And it was not so much a value-based decision. It was just, hey, I love the car industry. I worked there. After GM, I went into jet engines at Pratt & Whitney. Had amazing opportunities building jet engines from cars there. But then something happened. I had an opportunity to be a part of a company that was those days called clean tech. It was not really called sustainability. It's a relatively new word, but it was clean tech type of business. And I was president of a division of a large S&P 500 company focusing on emission reductions of gasoline and diesel engines. And then that was my really first introduction to the environmental impact of emissions. This was about 15 years ago. Environmental impact of emissions and the impact on the clean air, on health. Honestly, didn't know anything about that stuff. And that was a little bit of a failure of, honestly, education system at those times, that environment was never a part of any curriculum. And I'm glad it is now. So learned about that, and then I decided to make a pivot. And that's where I think a truly mission-centric objective came to my mind. I think from a traditional value, I've always valued, being honest, treating others the way you would want to be treated, being someone that others can trust and respect. I think that goes without saying. Those are foundational things. But in terms of a mission-centric value of sustainability in particular, that's where I made a pivot about 12 years ago, and I made a conscious decision to get into zero emission energy production, which was solar. Had the opportunity to lead a couple of large companies, hundreds, 1,000 plus employees, and really make a difference in emission reduction. And then another pivot happened. Another pivot happened that I decided, after I had decided to hang up my skates and really do consulting, maybe board positions, last year I decided that it was critical to continue to play a role in this field and make contributions. And not really from just a monetary standpoint. Obviously, as Lindsay mentioned, there are fantastic economics, both for users and solution providers, but really from a mission standpoint to make a difference. And energy storage is one of those areas where energy storage and electrification are very key foundational aspects of clean energy and energy transition. So I decided to put all my knowledge, all my expertise and relationships to use, and continue to try to have a positive impact in a field that I'm passionate about, and in a field that I think is super critical for the future of humanity, carbon emission reductions and weaning us off of fossil fuels. And then I founded this energy storage company, which I think can have a meaningful impact in the broader energy transition. So that's a little bit of a sort of how I evolved and how really the job ended up becoming a mission as opposed to just a job.
Thank you, Cam. That's very, very thorough background there, and maybe some of folks in the audience see parallels of that just on a microcosm in university, and being kind of just really set open to those experiences and seeing maybe that's why you're here tonight, in terms of those SDGs kind of sparking that that sort of mission-driven part of the career. So thank you for sharing, Cam. Danya, up next, what drew you to your current role? How important was it to find a job that aligned with your values?
I mean, I'll try and be as profound as everyone else. Those are great comments so far. I guess to start, what drew me into my current role, well, it was my time in Waterloo really did make an impact. It's where I met my co-founder and CTO, who was down the hall from me in the lab next door. And he came from a microbial ecology background. So I learned a lot about that space just by, being amongst other grad students and him. And, our friendship sort of eventually kind of developed into becoming business partners together. So that's what that happened. And then there's also this personal layer too. I think I met a lot of people on campus and even just outside of campus who lived sustainable lifestyles. And for some reason, I had a particular affinity towards that. This idea of just living around needing less and immersing yourself into nature more. I mean, we're just so lucky being even in Southern Ontario to be surrounded by beautiful natural landscapes. And we really can't take that for granted, because you don't get a lot of that beautiful flora and fauna in other parts of the world. And I slowly just, being a millennial who comes from a consumer heavy, chaotic, big city lifestyle, there was a sense of serenity to see that there are these types of changes you can make. And the more I started learning about the science with what we do at Untitled, the more it just seemed to have, it felt right for me. I also really like how fast-paced the sustainability space is. I mean, it's constantly evolving. A lot of the challenges that we're faced with today may be solved problems tomorrow. And this time next year, we might be having different types of career discussions. So I really, really like that component of it as well. And I think that's all I have. So
Thanks, Danya. That was just same caliber. It's all great hearing from all the panelists here, and yeah, I'm excited to hear more. I think we're, again, that might have touched on the pieces about talking that we'll talk about a bit later about kind of the current trends in some of these fields, the pace at which the SDG fields are moving at. Okay, so finally, Laura, maybe you can tackle the second question to close it off here.
You want the first question or the second question?
My apologies, the first question.
No, that's okay. I just didn't want to answer the wrong thing. So like many that kind of mentioned about their career from leaving University of Waterloo, which had a really profound impact on me. And it was sitting in the classrooms hearing, obviously I have an environment background. And so that was really important for me to hear kind of like the impact that our actions had on the environment. And I was kind of torn between wanting to do something more on the environmental end or go into kind of teaching. And I actually ended up, after graduating, ending up at Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics, where I worked in educational outreach. And it was really through that experience where I saw some of, you know, some of the things that would later become part of our community program, with a focus on students and using education as equity within education and really helping the future generation. And it was there that I was really interested in that, but I really wanted to kind of explore some different things that within tech. So I started at Vidyard, and I think I was employee 30 at the time, and our two co-founders, you know, cared so deeply about this community as well, and they grew up here, and it was really important for them that, you know, their business wasn't just another business, but it was really shaped around being purpose-driven, and that really aligned with my values, because when you're a purpose-driven business, it goes beyond your product. It goes beyond your day-to-day selling, whatever, right? You focus on making decisions and strategies that support social environmental programs, and you just attract a different caliber of talent, because people want to work for a company when you can work anywhere in the world, and you can work for a company where you're valued and you're respected and you're encouraged to give back in a really powerful and meaningful way. That was something that I was so excited about, and being able to then create a program that represented that, and allowing it to kind of focus on the things that really mattered, you know, longer term, and knowing that things all were interconnected, you know, the focus for students and then the focus for essential supports. You know, just it really aligned with my values. I have so much respect for our CEO, Michael Litt, who was also University of Waterloo alumnus, and he, you know, his heart for the community and wanting to find ways that we can make a tremendous impact really kind of inspired me to work there and build this program and kind of develop that. And yeah, it's very impactful when your values align with the business that you're working for.
Yeah, thanks so much, Laura. And I think hearing, again, common themes here about just how grateful we can be about that these conversations are happening at the University of Waterloo, to sort of kind of inspire and motivate at the undergraduate level. And also just both the fact that it's not just about where you end up working or what field you end up working in, but how can you approach the job? How do you structure your work as it aligns with kind of both values and purpose, both kind of very, very pertinent themes at the center of a career action too. So thank you for sharing. So we're going to move on to the second question formally, and we'll switch up the list yet again. So this time we'll have Cam kick us off. If you're ready, Cam, what have you seen occur / grow / change in your field that gives you hope for the future?
You know, being directly involved in the middle of climate change policy and technology, you know, solar energy, wind energy, distributed generation are truly at the center of minimizing or reducing carbon emissions. I have seen tremendous changes. I've seen tremendous changes in the past 10, 12 years that I've been involved in the sector. Many positive changes, things like dramatic growth in the deployment of solar and distributed generation in many countries around the world. I wish I could say Canada was one of them. Unfortunately, it is not. You know, I'm a Canadian. I feel proud to be a Canadian, but I also feel sad that specifically Canada has done, relatively speaking, certainly compared to G7, very little in terms of real impactful things on climate change and on minimizing CO2 emissions. These are facts, these are not opinions. So there's a huge opportunity there for all you guys who are still in Canada. Please drive that and drive it hard. But overall, at the macro level, I think a lot of positive things have happened. In US in particular, despite fair bit of political brain damage, a lot of good things have happened in terms of growth of solar, growth of distributed generation, and the corresponding CO2 emissions. So depending on when you ask me, Graham, I can tell you the glass is half full, or sometimes I feel the glass is half empty, because I'm in the middle of it. I live where the climate change is intense, the impacts. I think there are tremendous opportunities for people around the world and governments, namely governments whose countries produce the greatest amount of emissions, the G7 plus a couple of other very large countries. I think the opportunity is really to take this more seriously, to really have appropriate policies and regulations that recognizes truly time is running out. This is not a luxury. This is not a theoretical concept. Time is indeed running out. And what gives me hope is conversations like this, universities like Waterloo and others who are training the future leaders and the future technologies, developing future technologies to really do something. But I do think more needs to be done. And sometimes I really do feel that time is by no means on our side, hence the sense of urgency that needs to be had.
Thank you so much, Cam. It's thank you for laying out the facts in front of us and for that messaging. And yeah, totally, I think we can all resonate that the glass kind of that Necker cube goes half full, half empty, depending on the way we look at and frame things. But thank you for that answer. And it looks like it sparked a question that we can save for the Q&A later. So we will round back to your answer there. Okay, Danya, what developments in your field give you hope for the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started this company about 3 years ago, so just before the COVID hit. And back then we were trying to target and penetrate the biogas market here in Ontario. And there were no sales, no one really cared about optimization of anaerobic digesters. And even just more broadly speaking, people were not interested or knew about nature-based solutions at all. This was something that was mostly done in Europe, not so much here. But in the last 3 years, and also 3 years ago, we found ourselves having conversations where we were educating people about nature-based solution techniques on remediation or, whatever industrial process we were talking about at the time. But over the last 3 years, it seems like, and I think that it's driven by aggressive social media presence on climate change content, where you have popular podcast platforms having climate change scientists on, political activists gaining like Twitter clout. There has been a shift where now there are enough people who are educated on this, and conversations today are on how to move forward and how to create actionable items. And I think that's also why you're getting more venture capital backed clean tech companies, why there are more government grant funding opportunities for businesses like mine who have value propositions that support, SDG or just climate change initiatives. And so I personally have a lot of hope for the future, because I think even for us, being such a small startup, we have gained in cash flow over the last year, and things are starting to, there seems to be some change going on. So, and And, you know, I actually read this article in Forbes recently that was talking about consumers and them choosing sustainable products. And it was something like 2/3 of all consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable products. And the same 2/3 of retailers didn't think that their consumers are willing to pay more. And I think this is very much driven by the younger generation, which is Gen Z. They're willing to make these changes happen. So I think we're going through some greener transitions, and it's exciting to see what's going to come out of it. So
yeah, thank you. It sounds like some all those kind of serve as evidence in a way that the conversations we have in the education space, kind of as in the like as our kind of the younger generations, they're making an impact on the real world and starting to shift things, which is exciting. Laura, I would love to hear your answer to this question next.
Yeah, so echo a lot of what Danya just had said. You know, the conversations are starting a lot younger. You know, I do a lot of student outreach out in the community with the school boards and different groups as well. And you know, my daughter, I actually have a 9-year-old, and she talks about climate change quite often at home and what her responsibility is for that. And that's a refreshing change for young kids to understand that they play a part in that and that they can have an impact, which is so empowering for them. And my daughter, who's an aspiring astrophysicist, she's always talking about, you know, how can I create something? How can I be something so that we can preserve this, so we can do this? And so, and it's great to hear that, you know, it's not lost on the younger generation, that they see that they are the ones that are going to come with the solution. I want to kind of echo that too, the comments about, you know, people wanting to buy sustainable products. It's also, there's lots of data around what Deloitte released for their survey around millennials and Gen Zs and what they look for and where they work. And there's two of the major motivating factors for a lot of millennial and Gen Zs is around working for a company that does social impact and that is doing something for climate action. And I think we're just going to start seeing more and more of that. And if your employees are demanding that, then we're going to start seeing more and more. I also think that we're seeing more changes around like ESG disclosures and reporting, which is going to kind of gently force companies to start being a little bit more aware of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and their impact on the environment. I love voluntary initiatives if people can go ahead and do that first, but I also think that sometimes people need a little nudge. And I think that sometimes seeing that we're kind of moving in that direction, because we do need to action this and we do need to be a part of the solution. So I think that's all really, really good. And being able to kind of see a lot of that all working together, I think, you know, that those are all really hopeful things for us for the future.
Sorry, folks, I was muted there. Thank you again, Laura. I was just going to say it's kind of both inspiration and a call to action for the younger generation and the youth who may be here with us today. So that's fantastic. Roland, what have you seen occur or change in your field that gives you hope for the future?
So, since I deal with data from satellites, what we've been noticing, and we've built our business around this, is that what it costs to develop, build, and launch a satellite has dropped exponentially in the past 10 to 15 years, and it's continuing to fall. At the same time, satellite sensor and processing capabilities are increasing just as quickly in a smaller form, smaller footprint with less weight. But just as importantly, the cost to process and deliver the data produced by those satellites is dropping because of the advent of cloud computing technology and the tech that we're developing at Skywatch to deliver that data within minutes of it entering our system. The ability to produce actionable data in near real time that can be used to monitor events that impact sustainability and then be able to take informed actions to achieve our collective sustainability goals is really not that far off in the future. I have great hope for our future, given that outlook, if we have the collective will to act on the insights produced by using this data.
Awesome. Thanks for that hopeful message. That's good news. If we, again, that collective will speaks to that, which I think everyone here has that will today, and I hope it continues to spread. Goes without saying that everyone here has that in them. Shirley, if you want to give us a final take on this second question here, what have you seen about your field that gives you hope for the future?
Well, I'll start by saying that I got into venture capital quite a while ago, and in particular into clean tech during that first clean tech 1.0, the bubble. And so I don't know if everybody knows this, but clean tech 1.0 was an illustrious flop. The entire sector gave back 50%. So every dollar that somebody invested in clean tech 1.0, you got 50 cents back. So from an investment perspective, it was a horrific failure. And for so many years afterwards, it was a struggle to have conversations. We would start by saying we're a clean tech fund, and you would just see people's eyes start to roll, and you can never make money in that space. So what I have found so refreshing over the past, let's say 2 years in particular, there has been a palpable change in the conversation. The fact that we're talking about SDGs and other ESGs and other TLAs, and people actually know what the SDG stands for, development goals. It's a different type of conversation. And we have both newcomers to the venture space, particularly in climate tech. It's called climate tech now, not clean tech. But what I find very exciting is that the bias against clean tech has dissipated. There's still some doubters. And the most important thing is that in the intervening years, we've actually been able to deliver results. And I'll give you a great example. We invested in a long duration energy storage company called ESS based in Portland, Oregon. And we made that investment in 2017, and we ended up taking it public on the New York Stock Exchange back in October of last year. And we made an investment in the company's Series B. We got a very nice valuation and ended up as a public company at a $1.3 billion valuation. So I can now go to all those naysayers and say, nope, you can actually make money in clean tech. And I think part of that people have alluded to, it's the cost has come down. The cost of solar panels have come down. Much has been enabled by technology. But I also think people have grown and matured as well. So having been in this space for a while, I can look at what we did what we did back in Clean Tech 1.0, trying to treat every company as a software company. And climate tech is hard to do. It's not easy. Science-based solutions just take time, and you can't rush the science. And when you have the expectation that you're going to have a flip overnight, it's inappropriate. So understanding how to explain the investment opportunity to our investors, as well as setting expectations appropriately, and more importantly, managing the companies appropriately, is probably one of the most exciting things I've seen. And that truly does give me great hope. And not to mention the fact that there's now trillions of dollars coming into the space. So that helps too.
Totally. The funding side of things is not at all insignificant. And yeah, it's also it's fascinating to continue to hear how the conversation piece, again, with young people and throughout the generations, kind of are driving kind of changes, or even just the general perceptions and receptiveness to kind of these more conversations and actual impactful work being done. So that is really hopeful stuff there. And in our kind of third and final question to all the panelists here, this is one I'm just get personally excited about. I just want to take notes. This is the type of question where you can just take something with you for the rest of your career journey. So excited to hear from everyone here. So again, flipping the list, maybe we can start with Laura. What career or life advice would you give to your younger self?
This one caught me stumped a little bit, just thinking back on some of the things that I would do. I would say that what I would tell myself is that regardless of what job you're in, even if it's a temporary measure, wherever you end up kind of initially, knowing that the path isn't always linear to where your final career destination is, you can make change within an organization. You can advocate for the organization you're working for to be more sustainable, to think more socially in terms of like impact on in the world around them. And you don't need to be in a designated role to do that. And I think that's really important because, the employees are what make the business, and, working for an organization that, you advocate for that. It's so important. And I think of all of the people I work with that join that are like, I've got this great idea and I want to do this. That's so important. And you can bring that to any organization you're with. And I would say too, one of the things that I am still conquering my fear of public speaking, and shocking that I'm here now, I avoided any class in university where I had to talk in front of a group or do a presentation or anything like that. And it took me forever through university to kind of get to that point where I was like, no, I don't want this to hold me back. And I don't want this I know what I want to do, and this doesn't align, and being able to kind of like work towards that. Conquering those fears are sometimes very, very important. And that was very much a life advice that I kind of instill upon my daughter as well, is that, we work hard and we try, if something's kind of a fear, we can conquer it, and we can do that. And and just really do something you love. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you spend so much of your job in your career working and showing up to your job. Do something that you love, that you're passionate about, that you can see the impact that it's driving in the world around you. And I know every day I get up and I get to do something I love, and I'm so grateful for that.
Thanks, Laura. We got more than we bargained for there. That was a lot of awesome advice. Danya, what career life advice would you give to your younger self?
I think as far as life advice, I spent a lot of my 20s not really giving myself the time to, I was always just chasing and distracting myself with my studies and my career path. And I think there was too much rational thinking and not enough feeling. And I wish I could just go back to myself in my early 20s and say that all of these distractions and all these problems you're trying to run away from, all the chaos you're running away from, it'll eventually come down crashing on you eventually. So you're better off just kind of grounding down into reality and dealing with your problems as they come. I think as far as careers too, I don't have any regrets about starting a business. It's been very, very difficult, but I've also learned to just be kinder to myself, that everyone has their own path to success, and that you just need to remain disciplined and do an honest day's worth of work, but also just be kind and be realistic with your own personal stamina, and move away from social media. Don't be on social media. So yeah, thanks.
I think we all need to take that advice more often, for sure. Thank you for sharing, Danya. That's awesome. And Cam, I'll pose this question to you next.
Sure. I'd like to answer this in two ways. One in a general context, and one little bit in the context of career in sustainability. In general, I'm at a pretty interesting part of my career. Like I said, I decided to hang up my skates a year ago, but because of my passion about the industry, and frankly, too many people pulling me back in, I decided to jump back in and continue to play a role in the field. Looking back in general terms, I think some of the advice or counsel I can give to the next generation of business leaders, technical leaders, is that don't be afraid to make a pivot, to reinvent yourself. Push yourself to not always be in your comfort zone. At the end of the day, we learn the most and we excel the most when we don't allow ourselves to get too comfortable. in terms of not just a career, but in terms of our thought processes. Always learn, always read, always try to learn and expand your horizons, not necessarily purely in the context of a career, but just in the context of having more of a 360-degree knowledge and perspective. And then I think ultimately investing in oneself. This could be through informal means of learning, staying abreast of things, or more formally through advanced education. You know, Waterloo gave me a fantastic foundation. And after that, I decided to do advanced studies, and I got 2 advanced degrees from very good schools in the US, and those made significant contribution to my future growth and development. So invest in yourself to better yourself and constantly learn. I think in the context of sustainability, my advice would be, this is a humanity's opportunity that is essential to grasp, is essential to do something about and rise to the occasion. There is a tremendous amount of capital, Shirley touched upon that, for right ideas, for technological innovation, for software, hardware innovation, for business models, but really for those who want to make a substantial commitment to sustainability, and I hope it's many of us, especially the younger generation, who need to play a pivotal role, is grab the opportunity, rise to the challenge, and really look at it as a mission above and beyond the career, because this is truly humanity's opportunity to avoid what in all probability could be catastrophic outcomes 1 or 2 generations from now if we don't do the right things today.
Great message. Thank you so much, Cam. It's, again, getting way more than we bargained for here. Advice in all categories. It's so great. Shirley, I'd love to hear your take on this question.
I will say that when I graduated from Waterloo, I had student debt. And so the most important thing for me at the time, computer is, my printer's rebooting, so if there's background noise. The most important thing for me at the time was paying off that student debt. So I very much focused on getting that paid off. And sadly, that put me in a place where I was afraid to say yes to more risky opportunities. At a time when, as I had youth behind me, if I failed, I could still fix it. I could recast myself. I could pivot. So if I had to go back to the younger Shirley, I would tell her, don't be afraid to say yes. Put yourself in risky in riskier situations because you have the time, and importantly, put yourself, as Cam said, in those uncomfortable situations. Put yourself, and as Laura and others have identified, like, put yourself in those uncomfortable positions. It's put yourself in a position where you know you could fail, because you learn most from your failures. Success feels really good, but you learn a lot from those failures. And they're the lessons that you remember the most.
I just keep getting caught up in these, and I have to remember I have to speak next. It's so great, and again, like, such great common themes coming up here with respect to both the career and life side of things. Just, investing in yourself, getting out of your comfort zone, all that stuff, being open to experience and opportunity. That's great. Roland, if you want to take us home with this question, what career or life advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I think Shirley kind of stole my thunder a little bit, because I think my experience is going to be similar to hers. I mean, overall, the way things have worked out for me, I really can't complain. But there is a saying that I've heard other entrepreneurs use, and that's sometimes you have to get in the way of opportunity. So when you look back on your life, you sometimes recognize that opportunities came your way, but for whatever reason, you were unable or unwilling to get in the way. And, you know, there are many different reasons sometimes. So I would tell my younger self, maybe to get set up better so that you could get in the way of opportunity when it comes by. Maybe with a little less risk to yourself and to your family. I mean, I think maybe in my younger days, I might have been a little too risk adverse, especially with some of the things that maybe came my way that we maybe could have made a go of it. You know, but it finally did happen for me. I mean, I was able to get in the way when the opportunity to start Skywatch came up. And when that happened, I mean, I dedicated myself to doing whatever it took to make Skywatch a success. I'm the tech co-founder, right? There's the three original co-founders, and I get asked a lot, you know, why are you not the CTO? And the answer to that question is really simple. And it's kind of the next piece of advice I'm going to get to. It's because that's not what I'm good at. I know software development. I mean, like, I graduated with a computer science degree. I've done software development all my life, over 30 years. And the most significant contribution I could make to the growth of the company is to write code, which is exactly what I did. And not using my mediocre management skills to make bad decisions. That was just not in the cards. And the good thing is I think my co-founders also recognized that where my strength laid, and we agreed that you know, I should write code and we'll hire a CTO, which we did. And he's an awesome guy. He's one of the best managers I've ever worked for. So I would tell my younger self, you know, to know yourself, know what you are, do that well, work hard, and be humble about it, because you don't need a title for self-validation.
Awesome stuff all around. Roland, I'm like, whatever, like, if it's a book after the movie, I'm gonna watch the movie and read your book too. I love it. It's so great. Yeah, someone just like outcomes over egos. Just to thank you in the chat from Danya there. I love it. This has been such a great hour, and I personally have enjoyed listening to you all. I hope I know the audience feels the same. It's been so awesome hearing your takes about individual takes on sustainability and how they apply to kind of your very unique and individual careers and career pathways. And so thank you so much for taking the time and space to just be here with us today and talk about all this great stuff. We are going to move into just a sort of free-form Q&A period. So maybe to kind of structure this a little bit. If you have questions for a specific alumni here, you can put them in the chat and refer to them. You can also, if you have questions in general, then maybe you can just also write those in the chat, and then whichever alumnus wants to take it or alum wants to take it, we can go that way. If you want to come off mic and chat with us, you're welcome to do that too. Maybe raise your hand using the kind of reaction on Zoom, and we'll come to you there. But we do have kind of one question from earlier in the evening, and again, I keep saying evening, wherever you're coming from, whatever time of day that was, earlier in the last hour. Someone in attendance would love to hear more from Cam about what he thinks we could do here in Canada to push the so far low level of action further, especially as the new expanded fossil fuel infrastructure projects are in the works here.
Sure. You know, I can talk about that because I'm passionate about that topic, obviously, for hours, but I will keep it very brief. You know, I left Canada, when was it? In 1999, moved to the US. It was a career move. And then a few years after that, got into solar, but I've never really done clean energy stuff in Canada. In fact, it was a few months ago, Faculty of Engineering asked me to give a talk on clean energy to a group of students. It was sponsored by Faculty of Engineering. It was late last year. And I understand the space globally very well, certainly in the United States, but honestly, I didn't know much in terms of the Canadian landscape with clean energy. So as part of preparing for that talk, which was a very exciting talk, I did some research, And honestly, I felt very sad once I did the research, because it showed how little Canada has done compared to all the G7s, and in fact, compared to many others around the world, very much less developed countries. Canada is a highly developed, highly sophisticated, very wealthy country. And in fact, despite government doing, saying a lot of nice things, basically for all practical purposes, nothing has happened on clean energy and on emission reductions. Canada's per capita carbon emissions are not in very good company. Basically, it's one of the worst in the world per capita, and it's in the same class as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, which are massive consumers of electricity and basically nothing other than oil production. So I think Canada really owes it to its people and to the broader global economy to make a pivot. And certainly the intelligence is there. I think to some degree the capital is there, like Shirley's company and others. It's just that I think the leadership, especially at the policy and government level, is vastly missing, in my view, compared to many other countries. Tremendous potential. If I give you a very simple example, if you look at the European Union, 6% of electricity of entire EU comes from solar. If you break that down a little bit, countries like UK, much less sun than Canada on average, about 4.5–5% of electricity production comes from solar energy. Germany, one of the largest economies in the world, far more manufacturing and energy intensive industries than Canada, 10% of electricity comes from solar. What is the number for Canada? Basically sub 1%, 0.6, 0.7%. Tremendous opportunity. Another thing that made me sad returning to Canada after a number of years, to Toronto in particular, when I was a co-op student, one of my jobs was in Toronto, and basically Toronto ended. I think it was, the name of the street was Steele Avenue. Some of you know better, Steele or something. After Steele, one of those streets, it was basically farmland. There was nothing else. I was in Canada a couple of years ago in Toronto. I could not believe the urban sprawl. I mean, honestly, I was shocked because I was there as a co-op student. Then I came back and said, oh my God, Finch. I think somebody said that. Might have been Finch. Yes. I think the guy, you are right. But basically after this street was nothing. It was farmland, beautiful green space, a space that filters carbon, absorbs carbon, and now basically it's just never ending concrete. And yet much of that urbanization could have been done with much lower carbon footprint. There are technologies, cost-effective technologies to reduce emissions of buildings, net zero technologies. Every home could be solar ready. Toronto gets tremendous amount of sun, but zero vision, zero policy. And that hurts me as a person who's in the field and also Canadian, what could have been. So this is what I meant, that Canada has tremendous opportunity, but I think truly it has not risen to the occasion when it comes to real action on CO2 emission reductions. And then the icing on the cake is the disastrous Alberta tar sands, scarring the land and destroying, causing unbelievable permanent, near permanent damage to the environment. All of that land could have been used for solar and wind, then put a big transmission line and sell the power to the US. It's just that needs leadership, needs a different way of thinking, which has vastly lacked in variety of government circles in Canada. So huge opportunity, but it means nothing if the opportunity is not acted upon. Sorry, as you can see, I get a little bit passionate about the topic, but passion, I think, is a good thing.
I agree. I love it. I think we all appreciate that very thorough answer. That's fantastic insight, and yeah, hopefully.
And you know, the technology is there. The costs have come down tremendously. When I got into solar energy, California was the biggest market. The cost of solar for residential home was about $10 per watt. right now is about a couple of dollars per watt. So, I mean, the costs have gone down unbelievably. Solar energy is the cheapest source of energy today in the history of humanity. So the cost, the technology, energy storage is all there, but it requires different type of paradigm, different type of leadership. And I do hope Canada and Canadians, rise to the occasion.
Yeah, for sure. Opportunities need to be paired with the action. Well said. That's great. Thank you again, Cam. That's a fantastic answer to that question. Anyone else in the call here have any questions for specific alumni here, or just in general to pose to the panel? Again, feel free to come off mic or put it in the chat. If we don't have any further questions, I'll keep looking at the chat. We have kind of one or two saved up that we might still kind of pose to the panel. Wondering kind of, since we've kind of talked so much about kind of orienting ourselves towards the future and have all this kind of career and life advice kind of for both young students in their undergraduate journeys and afterwards. Wondering what, if anyone who wants to chime in here, feel free to do so. What are some ways that students today, like the younger generation, students in undergrad, can orient themselves towards sustainability as they go through their academics or experiential learning, whether in co-op or pursuing other opportunities, if they're a regular co-op or if they're an edge, or these are kind of Waterloo specific terms, but whether they're kind of in experiential learning or academics or in their extracurriculars, what are some kind of actionable ways that young students can start to orient towards sustainability?
Well, maybe I'll make an attempt, since I think one of the key aspects of the sustainability is around, I think, clean energy production, electrification. I think Canada has top-notch talent. University of Waterloo is one example of an outstanding world-class institution. Montreal, Toronto, UBC, so a ton of top-notch thought leadership, high-quality academics. And Canada also has fantastic capabilities in manufacturing. So I think one way that both at the macro level and micro level is really making a manufacturing pivot. I think Shirley talked about that a little bit in terms of leveraging that manufacturing and product development know-how, but more in the context of sustainability. A very good example is EVs. I think GM just started doing trucks in Oshawa that maybe are EVs, I'm not sure. But leveraging manufacturing for electrification, for EVs, creating technology capabilities, production capabilities in direct support of even exporting technology, whether it's solar panels, wind turbines. A lot of technology is coming from China because they made a strategic decision to be a technology leader, but that has geopolitical implications, that has national security implications. So trying to do more closer to home, and really leveraging the schools, the research centers for new product development, whether it is in traditional solar and wind, whether it is software, whether it is in fuel cells. But I think really leveraging that know-how and the manufacturing capacity, both for domestic and export of technologies that enable emission reductions. I think a lot can be had, but it really, I think, also needs some government policy and government leadership to promote the right investments and create the right environment.
And Graham, I'm just going to add to what Cam has said there. I think it goes down to intentionality as well. There are opportunities out there, and it's about being intentional about the co-op work terms that you choose. It's about being intentional on the risks you're willing to take. If we take a look at what Danya's done, she's created a company. That's pretty intentional, and that's a big commitment. So when people ask me these questions, it often is, I always go back to the intentionality. When you are intentional about something, opportunities actually do come, and because you're looking for them, and people know that you're looking for them. So if you have a co-op term, if you have an experiential learning opportunity, if you have a chance to work at a startup that's working in the clean tech or the climate tech space, be intentional about your desire to work in the space and pursue those opportunities.
Thank you, Cam and Shirley, for taking on that question. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd
I'll
like to
Yeah,
add
go for it.
something to that.
ahead.
Yeah, sorry, if you're kind of just chiming in here. I'd also like to encourage the students to think broadly about the idea of sustainability. I mean, if you look at the UN SDG, there's 17 goals on there, and not all of them revolve directly around climate change, right? I mean, a lot of people kind of box sustainability into the climate change sphere, and that's not 100% true. I mean, I agree. Like, it's hugely important. It's massively important that we address this problem. But there are many ways to do that, and you don't have to be involved in building wind turbines or developing solar panels to think that you're involved in solving the climate change problem. I mean, when we started our business, you know, sustainability was not top of mind when we started the business. That was not our modus operandi. It was to solve a specific problem regarding the access of satellite data. Now, as it turned out, this is hugely important for sustainability on so many levels, because you need the data. You need to be able to measure where you are, and if you're heading in the right direction. And the data that we provide really helps that. And I'm really proud of our role as a company in that. But it's not the first thing that you think of when you think about sustainability. So I would encourage the students to keep a broad mind as to what sustainability is, and how you can influence it. There are ways out there that you may not even have thought of that you can really help solve the problem that we're facing today.
Just to quickly touch upon something Ronald mentioned, 100% agree, Ronald, with you. Obviously, from my vantage point, I focus a little bit more on solar and wind. That's sort of the obvious ones. But I think you're 100% right. There are equally important and impactful ways to participate. If you look at it, and for me, I think sustainability somehow has to be tied to the reduction of CO2 emissions, one way or another, because ultimately that is a critical metric. But it doesn't have to be just in the context of energy production. If you look at buildings, agriculture, manufacturing, how we do things, how we do food production, how homes are built, regardless of whether the energy comes from solar or not, there are broad ways that meaningful benefits can be had, meaningful contributions can be made, and that can be in the form of software, hardware, technology. But I just want to sort of touch upon Ronald's point that there are, in fact, multiple verticals and venues where one can really participate and make an impact. And also, I saw a quick text or a message come up on Zoom. Somebody was saying, I think somebody said, I'm not directly in an engineering or a technical field. How can I contribute? Honestly, these are tough cross-functional problems that require cross-functional expertise. Whether it's Danya's efforts on leveraging microorganisms to address some of these adjacent challenges, whether it's software or satellite data, the reality is these are cross-functional problems. It requires people with strong finance background, software background, biotech background. I think these are multidisciplinary challenges that at the end require multidisciplinary solutions. So I would not let anybody get discouraged because they don't have an engineering degree. These are problems that whether you have a finance background, accounting, legal, environmental, software, there is room for everyone to play a meaningful role in solving these tough problems.
Thank you, Cam, for tackling both those questions. Danya, I saw you come off mic before. Do you have something to add to that question?
Well, I would also wanted to kind of touch on Mary Lynn's question on advice for new grads who are looking for a permanent role. And I think just to add to what Shirley, Roland, and Cam have said, for me personally, I mean, intentionality is huge, but also when you're just starting out and you're a new grad, I think, you know, you have to aim to expand your tools kit because you're just fresh out of school. And I think chasing things, vanity like money and high pay will definitely not get you to where you want to be. And I don't even think you'll be, you know, you have to take what you can get in order to get to where you want to be. And there's going to be lots of hard work put into that. I mean, not to say that everyone should go out and start a business, because we were, you know, going off of no money for a couple of years, and definitely not the best time to start a business during a pandemic, a global pandemic where your livelihood depends on labs who prioritize PCR tests over your microbes. So yeah, I think though, having a sense of longevity, that these things take time, and your career will take time to sort of crystallize, and the more experience you gain and knowledge you acquire, not just again from a technical standpoint, but to echo everyone else's comments of reading just about life and society and where we're at on a political scale, I think will all tie into your evolution in this space. So yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, thank you, Danya. Anyone else from the panel want to? We've kind of tackled a couple of questions in unison here. Any other thoughts on some of these questions, whether it be advice for new grads or kind of that cross-functional approach that Cam was speaking to, and kind of making a shift from one career path to another?
Well, maybe I'll just say this, and I think it adds to what Cam said, is it's such ESG and these SDG goals. I mean, it's such an interdisciplinary field, and it's amazing how people from a heavy biology background can interact with people who come from a very like non-STEM background. So I think that there is room for very much anyone and everyone in various disciplines to be able to provide value to. So I don't think you necessarily need, I didn't even come from a climate change or climate science background. I come from sheer biology, and I had to work my way up. This is all knowledge that you acquire. You just have to put in the work and read up on this stuff. So.
Well, this has been great. I think we have a little less than 5 minutes. There was one additional question, I think, for you, Cam, about how maybe the US compares to Canada in that space that you're speaking to.
Sure. I mean, the US obviously has substantial amount of solar and wind, proportionately speaking, much more than Canada. But also US, you know, is a bigger country. You have sort of a pretty unusual, complex system of government between the federal and the state. And it's a tough situation right now in US. US can do much more, and many parts of America, key government leaders want to do much more. But as all of you know, in Canada, because I know Canada pays a lot of attention to the US for all the right reasons, you know, it's a pretty tough situation right now in terms of the political landscape. That aside, I think one has to give credit where credit is due. A significant amount of capital, hundreds of billions of dollars have been invested, and substantial returns have been had. I think Shirley is correct that some of the early days of climate investment did not go well. But in the context of what has happened, at least in the past, let's say 10 years, there have been many stakeholders that have seen substantial benefits. Consumers who have seen substantial resiliency in their power consumption, availability, cost reduction, technology providers that have had substantial technology contributions and also financial outcomes for their investors. And so a lot is going on. And as you know, the US also is playing a significant role on the EV technology and energy storage. I think these are all things that Canada can and should also participate in. So I think there are indeed lessons to be learned. It is not by any means perfect here, but I think some benchmarking is worthwhile. Another thing that, I go back to my early days in solar. Solar in many ways started in US in California, and California became a benchmark for, in fact, many other countries around the world. But believe it or not, one little known fact that many people don't know is that Arnold Schwarzenegger, the little known actor, governor of California, actually played an instrumental role. He was a Republican, but he was also a visionary and someone who cared about the environment. And he really started what is called the California Solar Initiative that put the solar growth on the roadmap and really laid the foundation what became exponential growth in solar energy in California, in US, and many other parts of the world copied that. One of the things I think Canada is missing at the policy level, at the government level, is who's the Arnold Schwarzenegger of 2008 and 2009 in Canada that creates that vision and that momentum and challenges, that creates a paradigm shift. Because that's what Schwarzenegger did in California when it came to solar, really put solar on the map. I think that's another thing that Canada, certainly on the government front, who can provide that passion, excitement, and the vision to get this clean energy, distributed energy off the ground. And I think Canada has immense potential to really move the needle in the right direction in regard to clean energy production and distributed energy. Because Canada's most of electricity comes from hydro, so it's sort of clean, notwithstanding the damage to the environment that dams do, but essentially it is clean. But taking that one step further to distributed generation and significant step closer to net zero homes, because ultimately that's what's needed for sustainability. Major part of sustainability is to have net zero homes so that you basically generate what you consume. You don't add any carbon to the environment. I think all of that is very, very possible.
Awesome. Great question to end on. Who is the Arnold Schwarzenegger for Canada? And then whatever kind of sustainable development goal you're working towards, that's a question for you. And maybe that Arnold Schwarzenegger is in the call today.
Not in the Terminator role, in the governor of California role. Yes.
Important distinction there. Thank you, Cam. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I just want to, again, this is where I wish we were in a physical space so we could hear a roaring round of applause for everybody. This has been so great. Laura, Danya, Cam, Shirley, and Roland. This has been just an awesome finale to the Building Sustainable Careers workshop series. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. The thank yous are also pouring through the chat here. Really appreciate all of your insights and perspectives and lessons learned here today.
Yeah, thank you, University of Waterloo, for the opportunity to dial in and participate with the great panel and share some thoughts and perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.